They said, "We don't serve food to poor people." That's what they told me. Under the rain that had just begun, the beautiful woman stood alone in front of the restaurant. The meal she had been looking forward to for so long was ruined by the heartless actions of the restaurant owner. Devastated, she could do nothing but lower her head and let her tears fall. Her pain resonated with me as if it were my own. I could never forgive the person who made her feel this way. I stood up and made a call. "Hello, get me Mr. Reed. Right now." "Wha? Who are you?" Startled, she looked at me, and I revealed the truth. The truth is, this restaurant and I. Helping this woman get revenge wasn't just about her. It was also the start of a new chapter in my life. My name is Simon Courier, 35 years old. Today, I was invited by a friend to dine at a certain restaurant. Apparently, it's been especially popular lately. Rumor has it some international VIPs have visited in secret. Wow, that sounds impressive. I'm looking forward to it. Tonight, the sky was overcast. The heavy clouds looming above looked like they could start pouring rain at any moment. Still, it's lunch with a friend I haven't seen in a few years. My heart is bouncing with joy. So, this is Chateau Blanc, huh? Chateau Blanc, a French restaurant, was a renowned high-end establishment. The building, made of stone in a classic French architectural style, featured polished marble columns that gleamed even in the rain. Its modest yet dignified sign exuded an air of refined elegance. Seeing its exterior, I could understand why celebrities flocked to this place. Of course, the food itself had a reputation for impressing even the most discerning palates. "Come on, it's our reservation time. Let's go." Urged by my friend, I began climbing the large steps leading to the entrance. However, apologies, we're fully booked for tonight. A young couple who appeared to have come without a reservation was being turned away by the doorman. "I can't believe this. We came all this way," a frustrated voice grumbled. "Ah, poor things. But it's no surprise. This place might as well be reservations only nowadays. Is it really that popular?" "Simon, you've been away from the States too long. If it weren't for a lucky cancellation, I would have had to wait 2 months to get a table here." "Really?" I was a bit taken aback by his words. The restaurant had been fairly popular even before I left for work overseas, but it hadn't been anything like this. "They say the owner changed recently." "Maybe that's why." Talking as we went, we had no trouble entering under my friend's reservation. Walking down the hallway, the quintessential sounds of a luxury restaurant enveloped us. Polite, low-volume conversations and soft laughter from dining guests. A gentle piano melody playing unobtrusively, adding charm to the atmosphere. And the light clinking of cutlery meeting fine plates here and there. "This is a nice place. Here, it feels like." Murmuring to myself, I followed the staff to our reserved table. That's when it happened. A bright electronic tone rang out, completely out of place in the serene ambience. "Ah, sorry, give me a sec. Go ahead without me." It was a call from a work contact. I should have kept my phone on silent. I fumbled to pull it out of my pocket as I hurried toward the entrance. And then, forgetting about the ringtone entirely, I was captivated by the scene before me. The entrance door of Chateau Blanc was made entirely of glass, allowing a clear view of the restaurant's interior from outside. And vice versa, the staircase we had just climbed was visible from inside. Standing halfway up that staircase, in the rain that had just started to fall, was someone gazing up toward the restaurant. It's not my imagination, that's a real person. The figure, dressed in a sleeveless dress, appeared to be a woman. Could she be a customer? If so, why hadn't the doorman approached her? Why was she just standing there? Even as these questions crossed my mind, I found myself rushing outside. At that moment, the doorman's harsh voice reached my ears. "You filthy country bumpkin. How many times do I have to tell you? People like you, dressed like that, are not welcome here. The doorman glared down at the woman with eyes that regarded her as less than human. His hostility was extreme, and a small crowd had started to gather around them. A few passers-by watched the woman with sympathetic eyes. We don't have time to serve someone as poor as you. Now get lost. The doorman continued his tirade relentlessly. The woman, soaked by the rain, merely stood there trembling, her head bowed. Her pitiful figure was so heartbreaking it made my chest tighten just looking at her. Around us, murmurs of "that's awful" and "poor thing" began to spread. Yet, no one dared to step in. You're lowering the status of this place just by being here. Get out of here already. The doorman's insults grew more unhinged. At that moment, something inside me snapped. Is there a problem here? I shouted as I approached the woman. The doorman flinched for a moment but quickly recovered his haughty demeanor. Sir, are you acquainted with this lowly woman? My apologies, but people like her, this trash, don't belong here. My anger reached its boiling point. What do you think you're doing? I stepped closer to him. No matter the circumstances, how can you humiliate someone like this? Who do you think this restaurant is? The woman raised her face, looking at me with tear-soaked eyes. I had a reservation and was so looking forward to it. But then, her voice quivered. As she lifted her face, her tear-streaked eyes met mine, and I couldn't help but gasp. She's stunning. Through the strands of wet hair plastered to her forehead, her large, clear eyes gazed at me. Framed by long lashes, with a straight nose and softly parted lips, her face was so flawlessly beautiful it seemed unreal. Which made me all the more perplexed. Why was this happening to her? Did something happen? I asked. She averted her gaze again. For now, we couldn't just stand here getting drenched. Pointing to the eaves of Chateau Blanc, I said, let's go over there. But... What? To my surprise, she shook her head. Because. What? Her voice, soft and faint, was drowned out by the growing sound of the rain. I leaned in closer, straining to hear. Finally, I caught her words. They said there's nothing to feed a poor person like me. What? I instinctively turned to look back at the doorman standing at the top of the stairs. The same man who had greeted my friend and me with a smile and a warm welcome now averted his eyes awkwardly when our gazes met. Almost as if admitting he had deliberately discriminated against this woman. I'd been looking forward to this for half a year. The woman's words rang out clearly, piercing through the rain and the chaos. In that moment, I removed my jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. Then, please take my place. What? I'll give you my reserved seat. I'll explain it to the friend I came with. He's a good guy, he'll understand. To be honest, I didn't want her to dine at a restaurant that treated people so poorly. But at the same time, I couldn't let her give up on something she had been eagerly anticipating for so long. Come on, let's go. I extended my hand to her, but she didn't take it. Instead, she shook her head weakly. Thank you, but I'm fine now. Ah. Before I could stop her, she returned my jacket. Then ran down the rain-soaked stairs. Watching her retreating figure, I lost all appetite for dinner. Hello, sorry, but I'll cover the cancellation fee later. I said briefly to my friend over the phone before following the woman down the stairs. Wait, please, it's dangerous. My shout caused her to slow her pace a little as she splashed through the rain. At the same time, my worst fear came true. Ah! Eek! Her heel slipped on the wet sidewalk, and just as she lost her balance, I stretched out my hand as far as I could and grabbed her arm tightly. Thank you. She finally turned to face me. Her rain-soaked face full of mixed emotions. Relief at not falling. And then, uncertainty and wariness, her eyes seemed to ask, why is this person chasing after me? I swear I'm not suspicious, but maybe we could head into that cafe over there? I suggested hesitantly. Ha! When I pointed to a cafe down the street, she furrowed her brow suspiciously. Shoot, I must have made her even more cautious. I was starting to panic internally when. Achoo! She let out a small sneeze. Then shivered visibly. You're going to catch a cold at this rate. At least let's wait out the rain and have something warm to drink, I urged. But. For a moment, her eyes wavered with hesitation. Then, her gaze fell on my soaked shoulders. All right, she finally said with a small nod. Inside the cafe, the air conditioning was brisk and a bit chilly. I chose a seat in the corner, away from the draft, and ordered 2 hot teas while also asking the staff for some towels. As she finished drying her hair, I decided to ask her a question. First, may I ask your name? I am. She hesitated for a moment before softly responding, holding the warm cup in her hands. Her name was Tina Bellwood, and she was 28 years old. I introduced myself as well, explaining how I had come across her. Simon, is it? Tina looked directly into my eyes and, in a small voice, asked, Why did you speak to me? Her question was one I answered without hesitation. I couldn't just leave you there. Seeing you standing in the rain. I couldn't ignore it. Oh. Her eyes widened slightly in surprise. And for a moment, I thought I saw tears welling up again. Tina, would you mind telling me what happened? She lowered her gaze and fell silent for a moment. Then, as if making up her mind, she raised her head and began to speak cautiously. What she shared was almost unbelievable. I'm a farmer, actually, she began. She had been born and raised on a small family farm that had been passed down through generations. Now, she was running the farm on her own, having inherited it from her parents. On our farm, we grow a variety of vegetables each season, like asparagus and green peas in spring, tomatoes and eggplants in summer, pumpkins and spinach in fall, and cauliflower and broccoli in winter. Wow! I sell these vegetables at the local farmers market, and the rest are supplied exclusively to Chateau Blanc. Her eyes sparkled for a moment as she spoke about her work. But the mention of Chateau Blanc caused her expression to darken again. Every day, I work so hard to grow these vegetables. I've always been curious about what kind of dishes a top-tier chef would create with them. It's been a dream of mine since I took over the farm. She paused, her voice catching, before forcing herself to continue. So I finally decided to make a reservation. That was when it all began. Shortly after Tina arrived at Chateau Blanc, she gave her name to the doorman, expecting to be seated. But instead, she was coldly told, Ms. Bellwood, Mr. Reed has instructed us not to allow you entry. What? But I made this reservation 6 months ago. When she pressed for an explanation, the doorman connected her to Mr. Reed over the phone. And over that call, the restaurant owner said, if I'd known you were the daughter of Bellwood Farms, I wouldn't have accepted your reservation in the first place. French cuisine is all about aroma. A sweaty, muddy farmer walking in would ruin everything. Surely, you're not standing at the main entrance in your usual filthy work clothes? Even on a normal day, your presence is unbearable. Don't disgrace us or our properly dressed guests. The final blow came as he snapped. There's no food here for poor people like you, before abruptly hanging up. That's awful. My hands clenched into fists as I struggled to contain my anger. By the time Tina finished recounting her story, she had fallen silent, her head hanging low. A small droplet of water fell onto the table. It wasn't rain, but her tears. I looked up the dress code, made sure to follow it. I even put on makeup, something I don't usually do. Her voice trembled as she clenched her fists tightly on the table. More tears began to fall, dripping onto her hands and pooling on the table. Her blue dress, simple yet elegant, was a perfect match for her clean and graceful demeanor. The hair accessory holding her golden locks and her shiny pumps, all soaked and ruined by the rain, spoke of her anticipation for the day. Every detail was something she had carefully prepared for this occasion, only to have it all trampled on. "But you still look absolutely lovely," I said softly. "What?" She lifted her tear-streaked face, looking at me with a faint, weary smile. "I always entered through the back entrance." I never realized how beautiful Chateau Blanc looked from the front. The pure white stone walls, the marble columns, the glow of the chandelier through the doors. It was like a castle I dreamed about as a little girl. I just wanted to take one last look before leaving. That was why she had been standing on the stairs in the pouring rain. Unforgivable. Anger welled up in me again. How could she speak so fondly of a place that had treated her so cruelly? The actions of Chateau Blanc, and especially the words of Mr. Reed, were beyond reprehensible. As a human being, and as someone involved in the culinary arts, he had utterly failed. I took a deep breath, suppressing my anger, and put on a smile. "I'm sure they must be amazing." "What?" Tina asked, startled. "The vegetables you grow. Supplying them to a high-end restaurant like that. I must have missed out on something incredible by not tasting them." As I joked lightly, Tina lifted her face. "Of course, they are," she said with conviction, her eyes shining brightly. "I pour my heart into growing them. I adjust the soil preparation for each season and vegetable. I use pesticides only when absolutely necessary and always aim to minimize their use. Every day, I check the crops carefully to ensure they're healthy and have the nutrients they need." Wow! Admiringly, I thought to myself, I knew it. She loved her vegetables, and she loved farming. With so much care and passion poured into her work, her produce couldn't possibly be anything less than extraordinary. That's incredible. I don't think I've ever met a farmer with as much passion as you, Tina. Simon, are you? Tina tilted her head curiously. I decided to tell her that I was a French chef. That I was particular about sourcing my ingredients directly from farmers I met personally. "You're a chef?" "Yes." "If it's all right with you, could I visit your farm someday?" "What?" "I'd like to see it with my own eyes, the passion you put into growing your vegetables." "Well," Tina's eyes widened, and her expression began to brighten visibly. "Absolutely." She stood up with such force that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. She reached out as if to grasp my hands but hesitated and quickly pulled back. "Ah. I'm sorry," she said, looking down, her expression uneasy. "What's wrong?" I asked, puzzled. Tina glanced at her hands, then spoke hesitantly. "My hands, they're so rough. It's embarrassing." Slowly, she showed them to me. Her hands bore the unmistakable marks of hard work on the farm. Calluses from handling tools, stains under her nails that wouldn't wash away despite her efforts, and countless small scars she probably didn't even remember getting. I looked at her hands intently, then gently wrapped them in mine. "These are..." My voice trembled with emotion. "The hands of someone who truly loves what she does. The hands of someone who loves her vegetables." Tina looked up at me, surprised. Her eyes reflected a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "You should never be ashamed of hands that work this hard," I said with a gentle smile. "These hands are proof of your passion. They tell the story of soil you tilled, seeds you planted, water you poured, and love you nurtured." Tina stared at me, speechless. I continued. "Every callus and every scar on these hands speaks volumes about how much care you've given to your vegetables. To me, these hands are incredibly beautiful." At my words, tears glimmered in Tina's eyes. "Do you really mean that?" Her voice trembled. "Absolutely," I replied with conviction. "You should never feel ashamed of them. These hands are your pride." Tina smiled shyly and slowly clasped my hands in hers. No one has ever said anything like that to me since I became a farmer. Please, come see it, my farm, tomorrow, if you'd like. Tea tomorrow. Yes. I'm so happy that a professional chef wants to see it. I'm so glad I took over the farm. It was as if she had cleanly forgotten what she had just been subjected to. Tina smiles a carefree, full smile. She had no idea that ever since she took my hand, I'd been aware of just how bold I had been, my heart racing uncontrollably. She's beautiful. I thought. If she could smile like this just talking about her farm. I could only imagine how dazzling she'd be introducing her vegetables under the bright sun. Yes, I'd be honored. Thank you for inviting me. Of course. From that moment, I found myself eagerly awaiting the day of the visit. A few days later, I arrived at Tina's farm, Bellwood Farm. Good morning, Simon. I've been waiting for you. Tina greeted me warmly as my car pulled up to the entrance. Her work clothes were worn and covered in dirt, evidence of daily use. But somehow, she looked far more captivating in them than she had in the rain-drenched dress from before. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. The fields are sparkling with dew, and it looks amazing. Yes. Everything looks more beautiful than usual because today is a special day. A special day? Yes, because you're here. She beamed at me with a carefree smile. And I felt a strange sensation, as if my heart had been suddenly squeezed. The early morning air was still cool, but my face felt inexplicably warm. Now, let me show you around. Yes, please do. I stammered, snapping out of my thoughts as I hurried after her. Walking through the farm, I was immediately struck by the sight of impeccably maintained fields. No sign of weeds, just neat rows of summer vegetables at their peak. This is tomato field. I carefully manage the amount of water and sunlight they receive to balance sweetness and acidity. Wow! That's incredible. I couldn't help but voice my admiration. The large, bright red tomatoes were perfect in color, texture, and shape. Each one seemed flawless. They wouldn't look out of place on the shelves of a luxury supermarket. This is remarkable. I've never seen tomatoes this beautiful. Thank you so much. Tina replied, her smile lighting up the field around her. Tina's face lit up like the sun. Come on, let me show you the other vegetables. Wait, hold on. She was so happy to be praised for her tomatoes that she suddenly started to walk faster. With a vigor that pulled me along with her, Tina introduced me to other vegetables one after another. Zucchini, eggplant, bell peppers, corn. As we moved further into the farm, my amazement only grew. Every vegetable was thriving, perfectly cultivated, and looked absolutely delicious. This is incredible. You've been growing all of this on your own? As a chef, I've had the privilege of meeting many farmers, visiting their fields, and learning about their work. But I had never seen a farm as meticulously maintained as Bellwood Farm, nor crops as uniformly high quality as these. And knowing that such a young woman was managing it all by herself made it even more extraordinary. I'm the only one left to take care of this farm now. Tina said, her expression turning wistful. She went on to share a painful truth. 3 years ago, she lost her parents in a sudden accident. At the time, I didn't know anything about farming. I had to figure everything out from scratch. But vegetables don't wait. So I had no choice but to push through and keep trying. That must have been very hard. Yes. But this farm is something my parents left behind. When I was a child, I loved playing by their side as they harvested, tasting the fresh vegetables they picked. Those memories are so precious to me. That's why I have to protect this place, no matter what. When Tina raised her head, her eyes were filled with a strong, unwavering determination. She's beautiful, I thought, captivated by her resolute gaze. Noticing my stare, Tina squinted slightly and gave me a warm smile. As you can see, the farm isn't very big. But I do everything I can to make sure that the people who eat my vegetables are happy. That's what keeps me going every day. It's absolutely remarkable, I said, unable to hide my admiration. Looking at her farm, it was clear how much love and care she poured into her work. When I told her this, Tina looked at me with wide, surprised eyes. Really? Actually, my family also a farmer. So, I understand how much effort it takes to do what you're doing. What you've achieved here is extraordinary. Tina covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes filling with tears. Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Are you okay? Did I say something wrong? I asked in a panic. No, not at all, it's just… Back at the cafe, you said such kind things to me. And now, hearing you recognize all the effort I've put in. It feels like everything I've worked for has been acknowledged and rewarded. She smiled at me through her tears. And before I realized it, my hand had settled on her shoulder. Of course. Your hard work is incredible, Tina. You should be proud of yourself, no matter what anyone says. Simon. Sorry. I quickly withdrew my hand, realizing how presumptuous I might have seemed. Tina's eyes widened slightly, and we both averted our gazes awkwardly. I'm sorry. It's okay. The silence between us felt heavy, and the tension lingered in the air of the field. Wanting to break it, I turned toward her with determination and asked loudly, "Is there anything I can do to help?" As a thank you for showing me around, let me help you with something. Anything at all? Oh, no. You've already done more than enough by complimenting the farm. She waved her hands emphatically, looking a bit flustered. Then suddenly, her expression changed. She seemed to have thought of something. Looking up at me with hesitant, hopeful eyes, she softly asked, "Then, would you mind helping me with a bit of harvesting? It's a lot for me to handle alone." Of course. When I nodded, Tina's face lit up like a sunflower in full bloom. For the rest of the morning, I helped her with the harvest. This year, we had so many sunny days that managing the water levels was tricky, but as a result, we've grown some wonderfully sweet and delicious tomatoes. She said, sharing stories of the challenges and joys of farming as we worked. Her every word overflowed with love for her vegetables, and her gentle gaze often drew my eyes away from the work at hand. Wow, it's already lunchtime. You must be tired, Simon. When the work was finished, he invited us to Tina's house near the farm, saying, "Would you like to have lunch with us?" I try to eat the vegetables that aren't fit for sale myself, since they taste just as good. If you'd like, I can whip up something simple. That sounds great. I'd love that. About 20 minutes later, the delicious aroma filling the kitchen was enough to make my stomach growl. "Tina, can you check the oven for me?" "Sure." "Oh wow, it looks amazing." She peeked into the oven, her voice full of wonder. As I plated the dish from the frying pan, I nodded in satisfaction. Despite throwing it together with what was in the fridge, it had turned out well. But still, all done. We have stuffed tomatoes, zucchini gratin, and ratatouille made with all the summer vegetables we harvested today. Wow! Tina's eyes sparkled as she looked at the vibrant dishes laid out on the table. Thank you, Simon. You helped with the farm work and even made such a luxurious lunch for me. Well, I am a chef, after all. Making lunch is just another morning warm-up. If anything. The truth was, I felt like thanking her. It had been a long time since I'd enjoyed cooking this much. Her exceptional vegetables were what made it so special. Shall we eat then? Eagerly, Tina took a bite of the gratin first. Wow! Her eyes widened in shock. This is unbelievably good. I used the same zucchini and seasonings as always, but it's completely different from what I make it. Ha, I'll take that as a compliment. Encouraged by her reaction, I took a bite myself. Whoa! I stopped, stunned. It's incredible. Right? No, it's more than I imagined. The zucchini's juiciness and lack of any bitterness paired perfectly with the creamy bechamel sauce. Believing Tina's words that our vegetables don't need any prep work. I just washed and cut them, and without a doubt, it was the best gratin I've ever made. These are amazing, Tina. The eggplant, the tomatoes, the bell peppers, not just how they look but how they taste, too. They're phenomenal. It's only because you cooked them, Simon. This is the most delicious meal I've ever had in my life. You're an amazing chef. No, it's thanks to your vegetables. We devoured the meal, barely able to stop ourselves, while chatting enthusiastically about farming and cooking. The conversation flowed so easily that we lost all sense of time. Oh, it's already this late, Tina said, suddenly noticing the clock. It was well past 1 p.m. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you this long. I stood up, reaching for the dishes to help clean up. At that moment, our fingers brushed as we both reached for the same plate. Ah. Sorry. Tina quickly pulled her hand back, her cheeks tinged with a light blush. Noticing her reaction, I felt my face heat up as well. No, it's my fault. Thank you for the meal. Suddenly, I couldn't look her directly in the eyes. Carrying the dishes to the sink, I hurriedly excused myself and left her house, my mind swirling. Wait, Simon. Just as I was about to get into my car, Tina came running toward me, waving her hand. Simon, will you come back again? What? I had such a wonderful time today, and I'd love to see you again. Is that okay? Tina. There was no way I could say no. I shook my head and replied, of course. I'd love to help out again, as long as you'd have me. Really? Her face lit up with such joy that the image stayed with me long after. I hope I can always see her smile like this. From that day on, I started visiting Bellwood Farm 2 or 3 times a week whenever I could. We worked on the farm together, cooked lunch using her fresh vegetables, and shared stories while enjoying the meals. As time went on, the bond between us grew stronger. Summer vegetables will be done soon. Cleaning up afterward and preparing for the next crops will be a lot of work, Tina remarked one day. I'll be here to help, of course, I replied without hesitation. Really? That would be such a big help. But Simon, what about your work? Ah. Well, I think it'll work out, I said vaguely. Really? She asked, tilting her head curiously. At the time, neither of us had any idea what was happening. The restaurant that had humiliated Tina, Chateau Blanc, was facing a crisis. One that would soon spill over and bring Tina her biggest challenge yet. That day, we were busy with farm work under a gentle afternoon sun. The atmosphere calm and peaceful. Just as we were about to take a break, a phone began ringing. Ha! Who could that be? Tina pulled her phone from her pocket, her expression quickly stiffening as she looked at the screen. It's from Chateau Blanc. Do you think there's something wrong with the vegetables? As a matter of fact, Chateau Blanc had been trying to bargain down the purchase price for vegetables with some difficulty for some time. I knew that Tina had been treated badly, and I had also heard such stories. Hearing that name, I had a faint feeling of uneasiness in my heart too. Hello, this is Bellwood Farm. This is Tina speaking. She answered, taking a deep breath to steady her voice. A moment later, she exclaimed, "What?" loud enough to make me jump. What do you mean? That's so sudden. Tina? Sensing something was wrong, I gently called out to her. She turned toward me, her voice trembling as she whispered, "What should I do?" Tina, can you put it on speaker mode? I asked cautiously. I have a bad feeling about this. I asked her in a whisper, and she hesitated for a moment and then nodded her head. She manipulated her phone. The next moment, a man's furious voice bellowed across the farm. "Are you listening? I'm telling you, we're done buying your vegetables. The contract is terminated." "What?" The sheer volume of the shouting made even me flinch. Tina's shoulders trembled visibly. "Why so suddenly?" "This is very troubling," she said, her voice quivering. "Troubling? The only ones troubled here are us." The aggressive tone was unmistakable. The voice belonged to Mr. Reed, the current owner of Chateau Blanc. "Because of you, because you dared to come to my restaurant, we're in a mess. Terminating the contract isn't enough, I'm going to sue you for damages." "What are you talking about? I don't understand. What did you say?" Mr. Reed heats up even more. The yelling grew louder, and Tina turned pale, her expression on the verge of breaking. Unable to bear it any longer, I gently took the phone from her trembling hands. "Simon. Hello, this is Simon. I've taken over the call. And who the hell are you?" "I'm someone involved with Bellwood Farm." "I'll hear you out from here." "Involved? As far as I know, that farm only has the daughter running it." Mr. Reed's tone became slightly less aggressive, though still filled with irritation. Then, with an intimidating air, he began to explain his reasoning for severing ties with Tina's farm. "That girl had the audacity to show her face at my restaurant, dragging us into this mess. She's ruined our reputation." "Ruined?" "Social media. Some nobody uploaded a video of her being turned away, and now everyone's spreading lies online." Mr. Reed's story unraveled. Someone had secretly recorded the moment Tina was harshly turned away in the rain and uploaded it to social media. Over the past month, the video had gone viral. Other users who had visited Chateau Blanc began chiming in, posting complaints like overpriced and not as good as it used to be and they only care about rich customers. The result was a full-blown social media scandal, with Chateau Blanc's reputation now in flames. "I understand your position. However, this situation has no connection to Tina. In fact, your treatment of her warrants an apology," I said, keeping my tone even. "Shut up. How dare a filthy farmer think they have the right to come to my restaurant? That girl and you're both beneath me. I never should have dealt with lowly farmers in the first place. And another thing. Her vegetables. I hated them. Not a single bite mark from insects, too perfect to be natural, it's creepy. I bet she uses pesticides so strong they're harmful to humans. If our food quality dropped, it must be because of her vegetables." "What?" I quickly turned off the speaker mode, but not quickly enough. Mr. Reed's cruel words had already reached Tina's ears. Tears began streaming down her face. "Never come near my restaurant again. Your vegetables are garbage." I ended the call abruptly. The moment the line disconnected, Tina collapsed to the ground as if her strings had been cut. "No. Tina. Simon, what should I do?" She buried her face in my chest, her body shaking with sobs. "Chateau Blanc. I've been supplying them since the time of the former owner, Mr. Salisbury. Even after my parents passed away and the quantity I could deliver dropped, Mr. Salisbury was kind enough to continue the contract with me. But then," Tina explained through her tears, that things changed a year ago when Mr. Reed took over. He began nitpicking about the quality and quantity of the vegetables. Any attempts to defend herself were met with threats. "We can cut the contract anytime we want." Now, this sudden, baseless termination of their agreement. But what truly broke her spirit wasn't just losing the contract. It was, direct sales alone won't be enough to keep Bellwood Farm going. Maybe I was never capable of protecting it on my own. Ah! Her anguished words struck me like a dagger to the heart. To Tina, this farm wasn't just a workplace. It was a treasure trove of memories with her parents, a legacy passed down through generations. The fear of losing it was driving her to the brink of despair. I've tried so hard," she said, her voice trembling as she looked up. Tears streaked her face, but she forced a weak smile. "I've gotten up early every morning, even though I hate early mornings. I've gone out to the fields no matter the rain, wind, heat, or cold. I've always worn work clothes, never dressing up, never caring about fashion. When the vegetables didn't grow well, I told myself, I'm the only one who can do this, and stayed up late studying. And still, it wasn't enough, was it?" I was at a loss for words. Even in just the past month, I had seen the incredible effort she put into this farm. There was absolutely no reason for her to be treated this way. But still, I feel so defeated. Her words were the breaking point for me. "That's it. I can't stay silent any longer," I said, standing abruptly. I pulled my phone from my pocket. "Simon." Tina looked up at me. Startled, her tears momentarily halted. Once I confirmed she had calmed down, I dialed a familiar number. "Thank you for calling. This is Reed, the owner of Chateau Blanc." The voice on the other end answered before the first ring had finished, hurried and eager. "Yes, the person on the other end of the phone is the owner of Chateau Blanc, Mr. Reed, whom I was just talking to. Hello, this is Simon." "Simon. Oh, it's been such a long time." The sound of Mr. Reed's voice goes up a notch. It's the so-called sycophant. The faint sound of his knuckles cracking, a habit of his when he was on edge, came through the line. I could picture him, anxiously awaiting my next words. "Thank you for calling. Is there anything I can assist you with?" "Perhaps there's been some dissatisfaction." "Yes, I'm very dissatisfied," I interrupted firmly. "And because of that, I'd like to cancel my next contract with you." "What? Didn't you hear me? The contract is off," I repeated, enunciating slowly. Mr. Reed fell completely silent. Not a single sound came from the other end of the line. Taking advantage of the pause, I turned to Tina, who looked at me in confusion. "Tina, can you search my name, Simon Courier, online?" "Ha? I'm sure you'll find out soon enough. I'd been interviewed quite a bit for a while." "Oh, okay." Puzzled, Tina began searching on her phone. Then, right after that. "What?" Her eyes widened with a small cry. "Simon, is this real?" She turned her phone toward me, her face a mix of shock and disbelief. On the screen was a profile highlighting the illustrious career of Simon Courier, renowned French chef. At the age of 20, he moved to France to begin his culinary training. Won numerous international cooking competitions. Became the youngest ever head chef at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Acclaimed by celebrities and notable figures. Sorry for not telling you. That's who I am. I had dreamed of becoming a chef as a child and pursued the dream against my parents' wishes by attending culinary school. Through relentless effort, I was recommended for study abroad and left for France after graduation. For 10 years, I dedicated myself entirely to training in an unfamiliar environment where I barely spoke the language. The effort paid off. And I was scouted by a Michelin-starred restaurant where I worked until recently. I returned to the US after receiving an irresistible offer from a prestigious restaurant. Why didn't you tell me? You're such an incredible person. Well, just as she was about to reveal the reason to Tina, that's when it happened. The silent Mr. Reed raised his voice, looking terribly flustered. This is unacceptable. I've already sent press releases to all the major media outlets. We've been heavily promoting your appointment as the head chef of Chateau Blanc. Yes, the offer I had accepted came from none other than Mr. Reed. As part of Chateau Blanc's 30th anniversary celebration, he had persistently begged me to join as a temporary head chef, claiming it would be the highlight of their event. Reluctantly, I had agreed, thinking it would also be an opportunity to refine my skills in French cuisine for an American audience. The announcement party is in a week. Please, tell me what's wrong, I'll do anything to fix it. Anything? Yes. Then, come to the location I specify right now. Of course. Mr. Reed immediately agreed. The location is. What? When I revealed my current location, there was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Exactly 30 minutes later, a luxury car roared onto the farm and screeched to a halt. Simon! Mr. Reed stumbled out of the car, his face pale and his legs wobbly. It was clear that he had figured it out. The lowly farmer he had insulted on the phone was connected to me. Ah! I knew it. The moment he saw Tina, the color drained further from his face. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish, utterly frozen. You asked me what I was dissatisfied with, didn't you? Do you understand now? Yes. I do. Mr. Reed nodded furiously, his eyes darting around nervously. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to say what needed to be said. Frustrated, I decided to deliver the blow myself. Good. In that case, consider my appointment as head chef cancelled. I'm sorry. Suddenly, I thought he was kneeling on the ground. The next moment, Mr. Reed became postured with his hands folded in front of his chest and began to apologize. The vegetable contract will remain. I'll ensure it continues. And Tina will be personally invited to dine in our most exclusive VIP section. Please. Simon, losing this contract would be devastating for us. I beg you. Well, watching him grovel so shamelessly, I couldn't help but smirk internally. The once overbearing Mr. Reed now looked like a completely different person. I turned to Tina, ignoring Mr. Reed's pleas. This is why. They've already issued press releases, so searching my name will lead you to articles about Chateau Blanc. I didn't want you to know I had agreed to work for someone like him. After hearing my explanation, though her expression was still one of disbelief, I see. But if I accept his apology, would you still take the position as head chef at Chateau Blanc? She looked at me hesitantly, but I shook my head firmly and replied. I refuse. Mr. Reed let out a foolish sound, his arms going limp. I cook with a firm belief in my principles. I want to create food that anyone can enjoy, savor, and feel comfortable eating. That's the reason I've honed my skills. I cannot work for a restaurant owned by someone who discriminates against others based on their occupation. It goes against everything I stand for. And I can't forgive what you said earlier either. The reason Tina's vegetables are so consistent in quality is because of her incredible effort. She minimizes pesticide use, removes pests by hand, inspects her crops meticulously every day to detect diseases early, and only delivers the very best vegetables to her customers. These are first-rate products made by a dedicated professional, something someone like you, who lacks the discernment to appreciate them, will never understand. Take it back and apologize. As I stepped closer and looked down at him, Mr. Reed began trembling violently. Then, suddenly, he shot to his feet, leaning aggressively toward me. Don't mess with me. Don't get cocky, you little brat. His face turned red with fury, veins bulging on his forehead as he screamed. Intimidated by his intense expression, I instinctively stepped back. But he immediately closed the gap again, his anger unrelenting. I moved in front of Tina, shielding her behind me. You think you can lecture me about the value of vegetables? It doesn't matter where they come from, they're all the same. I don't need your tasteless, overly perfect vegetables. Simon, you too. I'm well connected in the culinary world. A single word from me, and no one will hire you. Even if you try to open your own restaurant, you won't even be able to get a single tomato. Mr. Reed spat his threats, practically frothing at the mouth, his voice filled with misplaced triumph. In response, I remained calm. Is that so? What? Don't you understand your position? You should be the one begging me to make you head chef. Is that so? Then let's settle this however you'd like. Ha! You've got guts, I'll give you that, though you don't stand a chance. Mr. Reed smirked confidently, his arrogance on full display, but I slowly stepped closer to him and lowered my voice. Just remember, I'm also well connected in this industry. I have many influential food critics and respected figures in my corner. Ah! As I whispered those words, Mr. Reed froze, the color draining from his face. I knew why he wanted me as head chef. He was desperate for a Michelin star, which had eluded Chateau Blanc under his leadership. I had hit him where it hurt most, and his bluster quickly deflated. Just you wait. He stammered before storming off to his car and speeding away. As I watched him leave, I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. I didn't want someone like that buying my precious vegetables anyway. Thanks to you, Simon, I feel so much better. But this means Bellwood Farm might really be in trouble now. I nodded to Tina, who gently lowered her eyes, and I nodded to her and said, "It's okay. Don't worry. I have an idea. And I think you'll like it." An idea? Shortly after, news broke through various media outlets. A world-famous chef cancels appointment as head chef at prestigious restaurant. Fans eagerly awaiting my cooking in the US expressed their disappointment, and there was backlash against me as well. At first, the media painted Chateau Blanc as the victim. Are you sure about this, Simon? Don't worry. Just wait a little longer. I was optimistically going about my day-to-day life as usual. Then, after about a month, they were using rotten vegetables. A doorman who couldn't stand Mr. Reed's antics admits it's true, bribing food critics to attract customers with false and highly rated articles. In contrast to the quelling of public bashing of the chef, the truth, which the owner had been suppressing by any means possible, began to erupt and was reported one after another. The staff's dissatisfaction had been growing since the new owners took over, due to their arrogant attitude and unreasonable cost-cutting. The owner of the restaurant told them, "We have changed our suppliers. So you chefs and servers have to do something to keep the customers from finding out about the inferior and bad-tasting vegetables." The staff, who had been working with pride, finally exploded in frustration and leaked the truth to the media as if competing with each other. And I wanted to stand up for my beliefs. I will never regret it, even if it means being ostracized from the culinary world. The timing of the publication of the article on the chef who so boldly stated this may have been the coup de grace for the owner. Chateau Blanc has a rattled reputation. Mr. Reed, in particular, was the culprit behind the cancellation fiasco and was bashed even more than the chef. On the other hand, Simon, I'm adding a seasonal salad and soup set. Got it. This one's ready to go. I'll take it out. The lively exchange between the chef and the staff in the kitchen blended seamlessly with the cheerful conversations of the diners. This is our farm-to-table restaurant, built on a section of Bellwood Farm and dedicated to showcasing the incredible vegetables Tina grows. Offering fresh, farm-picked vegetables transformed into delicious and healthy dishes, the restaurant has quickly gained a reputation. In just 6 months since opening, it's been fully booked nearly every day. Thank you. Thanks to you, Simon, I've been able to protect Bellwood Farm. And look, it's the most wonderful feeling to see people enjoying what I've worked so hard to grow. Tina narrowed her eyes as she watched the halls where everyone was smiling and enjoying the vegetables. She is more than happy to see people enjoying the vegetables she has painstakingly produced. Her expression tells the story. So I couldn't help but smile as well. Let's open a restaurant together. I am so glad I suggested that. The cancellation fiasco also brought about an unexpected publicity effect, and many people from far and wide are coming to visit. For the time being, it looks like we will be very busy with farm work and running the restaurants. Incidentally, behind our success, Chateau Blanc, which continued to lose customers, quietly went bankrupt before we knew it. The owner of Mr. Reed was saddled with huge debts and was to lead a life of being looked down upon wherever he went. "Tina, I need to talk to you," I said one evening after we had closed up for the day. I had called her out to the terrace. "What is it?" "You're being so serious," she asked with a gentle smile. Her kind expression made my heart race. When she stood beside me, I took a deep breath and began. "Tina, I love you." "What?" She froze, her eyes widening in shock. Beneath the starry sky, her cheeks turned a deep shade of red. "I've wanted to tell you for so long, but I couldn't find the right moment or the courage. I kept putting it off, and now, finally." Tina stared at me for a long moment, then averted her gaze. I've loved you for a long time too, Simon." "Really?" I asked, almost disbelieving. "Yes. But I thought someone like me could never be good enough for you." "What?" "World-famous chef and simple farmer. I thought the gap between us was too wide, so I tried to give up on my feelings." She gave me a sad smile, her voice tinged with self-doubt. "Simon deserves a more suitable partner." "No, that's not true." I grasped her hands tightly, surprising her. I looked straight into her surprised eyes and pleaded my feelings. "Tina, I've always felt the opposite." "What do you mean?" "Well," I explained how, as the eldest son of a farming family, I had chosen not to inherit the farm and instead pursued a career in cooking. Perhaps that was a debt somewhere in my heart. No matter how much success he achieved in the culinary world, the thought of what if I had taken over the family business never went away. At that time, meeting you and helping out on the farm. At first, I wondered if it was my way of trying to make up for that guilt. I worried that I was using you to fill a void I couldn't deal with myself. "Simon." But still, I couldn't give up. I kept talking. "What drew me to you was your unwavering dedication to farming. The way you pour your heart into growing the best vegetables, never cutting corners. Always thinking about the people who will enjoy your produce. That strength captivated me. By the time I realized it, I had fallen completely in love with you." Hands worn and calloused from farm work, covered in small cuts and blisters, yet they were the gentlest hands in the world. I took those hands, which I thought were the most beautiful in the world, and held them again, softly. "Tina, you're the best farmer in the world. Someone like me, still learning, isn't worthy of someone as amazing as you." "Simon." Before I realized it, Tina pulled her hands away, but only to throw her arms around me, embracing me tightly. In the cold night air, I felt a warm sensation spreading across my back. It was the warmth of Tina's hands. I want to grow even better vegetables. I still have so much to learn." "Then we're the same." "Yes, so stay with me, always." That was her reply to my confession. Her tearful smile stirred something deep within me, filling my chest with warmth. "Of course, forever," I promised, my voice catching with emotion. To the woman in my arms, I vowed to always stay by her side, no matter what the future held. "And I will, too. No matter what, I'll always be with you, Simon," she whispered, reaching her hand toward me with a tender smile. I pulled her close once more, holding her tighter than before. The countless stars above us seemed to watch over our exchange, shining gently as if blessing us. Life changes through unexpected encounters. I once thought my path was only in cooking. But meeting Tina, someone who faces farming with such dedication, led me to embrace both cooking and agriculture as my way of life. If you ever find yourself lost in life, take a moment to look around. You'll find someone living their life with a radiance so bright that it inspires you to step forward on the path you truly want to take. Just having that person nearby will naturally guide you to look ahead. And one day, you too might live in a way that encourages someone else to keep moving forward.